dice, then just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to save. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Without any thought, I keep moving on. I don't even care if my soul is gone. So many words that I should have said. Not concerned about how to live instead. Just open your eyes and take my advice. Stop rolling the dice and just compromise. It's the chance of your life. Okay, try to be brave. You have so much to save. Take control of your own life. Right now, every mistake makes you feel like a fake. Take control of your own life. Nothing in life is good. Tied in with feel better on the weekend. Give my life a better meaning. Let me stay where I'm in phase. I feel better on the weekend. I feel better on the weekend. Give my life a better meaning. Let me stay where I'm in phase. I feel better on the weekend. Lose control, get away. Lose control, someone ever play. Lose control, get away. I feel better on the where I'm in phase. I feel better on the weekend. I feel better on the weekend. Give my life a better meaning. Let me stay where I'm in phase. I feel better on the weekend. I feel better. I feel better. I feel better. Let me go far away. Let me go where my memories stay. Let me go far away. I feel better on the weekend. Lose control, get away. Lose control, someone ever play. Lose control, get away. I feel better on the weekend.
Welcome to Cyber Threat Intel, your go-to source for the latest updates, news, and insights on cyber threats. Our goal is to arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself in the digital age, whether you're a cybersecurity professional or just curious about the threats lurking in the digital shadows. Make sure to subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform to join us on the front lines of cybersecurity, because in the world of cyber threats, knowledge is power. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Good to be back. It's been a while since I've been doing live streams, so it definitely feels good to get back on here. See that some people are already in the live stream here and saying, hey, good morning, Daniel, Ted, Amine, is that how you say it? Amin, Anonymous, like the play on the name there. That's pretty cool. And Adam as well. I have a few people saying good morning, so I'm curious where you're at in the world, what time it is, just what location around the world you're in, what country, those kinds of things. Definitely let me know in the chat. But again, it's great to be back here. It's great to be seeing everybody. This is a new show that I'm going to be doing. So previously did a lot of stuff as far as different threat headlines and news headlines and things like that going on in the industry and the career field, things that you need to know about, giving a little bit of insight into that, just really talking about the impact of the different events or things to consider. And from my perspective, right, from somebody who works in the career field, so if you are trying to get into the career field, you're just starting out, this is a great way for you to learn about the different events that are going on. If you're already in the career field, well, then it gives you great insight into how somebody else is thinking about these different events. And also, if you have certifications, you can definitely use these as continuing education credits, right? So that is a very helpful thing to maintain those certifications that you work so hard to get, and you don't want to let them lapse. So let's see what else we have in here in the chat. It's a mean. Okay. I'm sorry. Great to have you here. Adam is in Tokyo. Wow. Okay. What is the weather like over in Tokyo? I've never been to Japan, never been to Tokyo, obviously, if I haven't been to Japan, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. So curious to hear a little bit about it. Right now, just giving people another minute or two here, kind of introducing the show, but want to give a few people a little bit more chance to hop on if you want to. So while we are doing that, and while we're waiting for another minute or two for people to show, because this is a new show, there are a few things that I want to make sure that people are aware of, just so, as far as the show goes and the show notes and things like that. And I'll say this again too, but as far as the live streams and videos, so on-demand replays of this, it is going to be available on the John Good Cyber channel. So you can go there and watch it. So if you're listening on podcasting platform, for example, you can come to the channel and check out the video format. Speaking of that, in the audio format, if you go to cyberthreatintel.com, so just like you would think, cyberthreatintel.com, you can access the audio. There's also links to everywhere where it's going to be distributed. And that's up there right now. And if you go to any of your popular podcasting platforms, your iTunes, Spotify, whatever else you use, I'm sure, it's going to be distributed there as well. So if you just want to listen to the audio only format, you can do that too. If you want to see the articles that we're going to cover, and we'll jump into those here in a minute or two, but the articles that we're going to cover, if you go to feed.cyberthreatintel.com, so feed, F-E-E-D, .cyberthreatintel.com, you can see the articles that are covered in this, as well as a lot of other articles that I add to there as well that we don't necessarily cover. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, all this stuff will be in the description of this stream, and it's actually already in there. So if you haven't seen it, it is in there, so you can go there and you can check out the things that we're going to talk about. And Adam says, at the moment it's sunny, but quite windy, so it's pretty cold. Currently 7 degrees Celsius. I don't know exactly the conversion to Fahrenheit because I am in the US, so I'd have to look it up, but that seems like that's probably fairly cold. And judging by your emoji that you put in there, it looks pretty cold. So, all right. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and switch over here to the screen and start looking at these different articles. All right. So again, you'll be able to see any notes or highlights or anything like that that I put in here. So go to the link that is in the description. You'll be able to see this. But hackers using cracked software on GitHub to spread Rise Pro info stealer. So if we scroll down here, cybersecurity researchers have found a number of GitHub repositories offering cracked software that are used to deliver an information stealer called Rise Pro. Repositories look similar, featuring, basically with this, they are featuring a readme.md file with the promise of free cracked software, according to a German cybersecurity company. So basically what happens on GitHub, if you're not familiar, there are these readme.md files, and basically it's a readme file, right? It is the explanation of whatever that repo is. And with this, they're specifically targeting cracked software. Now, this is really interesting. So green and red circles are commonly used on GitHub to display the status of automatic builds. So this is to distinguish between automatic builds or, user-generated builds, basically. And GitGub, which is what this is dubbed, threat actors, they added 4 green Unicode circles to the README file So basically just the image, like an emoji, something like that, right? To display a status alongside a current date and provide a sense of legitimacy and recency. The list of repositories is as follows, with each of them pointing to a download link, digitalxnetwork.com, containing a RAR archive file. I'm not going to say these different ones that are on here, but go check out the article if you're interested in seeing that. There's a whole bunch of them, so it's not worth saying them. But basically what's happening here, the readme.md file contains an installer file, which unpacks the next stage payload, an executable file that's inflated to 699 megabytes in an effort to crash tools like IDA Pro. Basically, IDA Pro is an analysis tool, reverse engineering kind of tool that you would use as a security professional to look at this stuff, but they're trying to crash it, right? So the actual file is only 3.43 megabytes, and it acts as a loader to inject Rise Pro version 1.6 into either the applaunched.exe or the regasm.exe file. It's written in C++, it's designed to gather sensitive information from infected hosts and exfiltrate it to 2 Telegram channels, which are often used by threat actors to extract victims' data. Yeah, so, this is pretty common kind of stuff, really going after low-hanging fruit, people that aren't paying attention especially, right? Because this is on GitHub, so there's a specific technical acumen or familiarity that somebody's going to have if they're going on GitHub. They're probably not like a, random beginner, but this just lets you kind of have some insight into even somebody who's very technically savvy, right, on GitHub. They can be fooled. All you have to do is put in little Unicode symbols or, something to make it look legitimate, just like if you were cloning a website. And they're basically putting in these kind of fail-safe measures to crash any kind of analysis tool that you might use if you were trying to look at it. So not super sophisticated as far as what they're trying to do, right, to fool you, but then it's executing this kind of multi-stage payload in order to get some malware installed on your system. These are the kind of things we see a lot. We see it pretty low sophistication level as far as getting the malware onto your system, maybe running a PowerShell command or something like that. And yeah, people fall for it all the time, right? But that's why you have to be really aware of even just like the simplest things, right? You can't just rely on your kind of awareness or your knowledge to prevent this kind of stuff. So very interesting. Next article here, former telecom manager admits to doing SIM swaps for $1,000. Okay, that's very interesting. Former manager at telecommunications company in New Jersey pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges for accepting money to perform unauthorized SIM swaps that enabled an accomplice to hack customer accounts. So SIM swapping, if you're not familiar with what it is, a lot of phones these days, and especially previously with like GSM providers, so like AT&T or what's another one, Vodafone, like those kinds of providers, right? All kinds of them around the world. But a SIM card, a little identifier card that goes in your cell phones or iPads, things like that. And it allows you to communicate with the networks. And basically what happens with these SIM swapping attacks is you change it from one device. So if your cell phone is registered to your phone number, and then it switches to a device that is controlled by an attacker. So why does this matter, right? Well, as far as a user, a consumer, if your device gets switched to another device and you have multi-factor authentication or SMS code authentication set up for whatever account, social media, something like that, well, then all they have to do is try to get your password or figure out that piece of the puzzle, and then it's going to send them the code instead of you the code, and then all of a sudden they can get into your account. They can change the backup email, the recovery email, the phone number, like all that stuff, right? So it's a very serious thing. Again, not super sophisticated, but typically something like this requires access to either as an employee, right? In this case, so we're talking about an employee, a manager that had access, was able to really take advantage of their access and kind of, go beyond what they should have been doing. And they already had elevated rights too as a manager. So they had this highly privileged account at a mobile telecommunications store. So they already had that elevated rights, right? But they were able to do this from the inside. Another way to do this would be if you got access to somebody's mobile communications, their telephone provider's website, their account, right? You could just log in and change it right on there. That would obviously be another way to do this. But, if it's on the inside, that's challenging, right? As far as a company is concerned, that's where you have to be concerned about making sure that you do background checks, making sure that you have privileges that are limited, right? It has to be relative to the role. Does this manager need that highly privileged account? A lot of times as you go up, especially like if you're in a store, let's say like a retail telecommunications store, you need people to have certain levels of access so they can do things. They can troubleshoot, they can change things on an account. So there's a certain level of trust in there, but that's a dangerous thing. And then that obviously has repercussions for that company as well. So Katz, aka Luna, which is the person that did this, performed the SIM swaps between May 10th and 20th, 2021. So it was a while ago, it was a couple years ago, while he was a manager for a telecom firm. So what did he get for it, right? For carrying the unauthorized number porting, Katz received $1,000 in Bitcoin per SIM swap, so a total of $5,000, plus an unspecified percentage of the profits earned from the illicit access to the victim's device. For his actions, Katz faces a statutory maximum of 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000 or twice the financial gain or loss from the crime. So they're going after him pretty decently, right? If you only got 5,000 and then unknown amount of profits, maybe they know, right? How much profit he made, but $250,000 or twice the financial gain. That's a pretty hefty penalty depending on how much he got, right? Let's go to the next article here. So this article is just interesting since we all deal a lot with social media, but LinkedIn plans to add gaming to its platform. LinkedIn, let's see here. So TechCrunch has learned and confirmed that LinkedIn is working on a new games experience. It will be doing so by tapping into the same wave of puzzle mania that helped simple games like Wordle find viral success and millions of players. 3 early efforts are games called Queens, Inference, and Cross Climb. There's a quote here: we're playing with adding puzzle-based games within LinkedIn, the LinkedIn experience, to unlock a bit of fun, deepen relationships, and hopefully spark the opportunity for conversations, the spokesperson said in a message to TechCrunch. Stay tuned for more games. So if you're allowing LinkedIn on your networks, I wonder if you're going to have employees that are playing these games just like they would with Facebook, right? It's an interesting kind of shift too. Obviously, with Microsoft and LinkedIn and that relationship there, that is, it makes sense that they're kind of going that way. But also from a professional platform standpoint, that seems to be counterproductive, right? But I guess they're trying to really rope people in and get them addicted to the platform. So games are regularly among the most popular apps for mobile phones and PCs, both in terms of revenue and engagement. And puzzle-based casual games has been one of the most popular categories in the space among mobile users. Non-gaming platforms have long tapped into the facets to boost their own traffic, arguably a trend that preceded the internet if you think about the popularity of crosswords and other puzzles in newspapers and magazines. So again, they're just really trying to get people addicted to the platform. I don't know how else to put it, right? But I'm not really in favor of that. That's going to really change the experience, I feel like, of LinkedIn. What do you guys think? Do you think that's going to change it? Do you think that it's going to stay the same, better, worse? Interested to hear what you think. Next article: hackers exploited WordPress pop-up builder plugin flaw to compromise 3,300 sites. Threat actors are hacking WordPress sites by exploiting a vulnerability tracked as CVE 2023-6000 in old versions of the pop-up builder plugin. In January, security researchers reported that the Balata injector malware infected over 7,100 WordPress sites using a vulnerable version of the pop-up builder WordPress plugin. Popular builder WordPress plugin before 4.23 does not prevent simple visitors from updating existing pop-ups and injecting raw JavaScript in them, which could lead to stored cross-site scripting attacks. So if you don't know what WordPress is basically a website builder. It's a really popular blog kind of platform, but a lot of people use it for their website, right, or their blog. They have their own platform where you can just create an account and have a blog, but they also have an actual software application that you can deploy to your own platform. So if you had like a Google website or GoDaddy or something like that, you can deploy that application to there. These attacks originated from two domains registered on February 12th, 2024, t10coming.traveltraffic.cc and host.cloudsonicwave.com. Threat actors exploit the bug in popular Builder WordPress plugin to inject malicious code in the custom JavaScript or CSS section of the WordPress admin interface, which is internally stored in the WP_post meta database table. So really, I mean, with this, with this specific one, they're saying to upgrade the software, right? Upgrade the plugin. But this is one thing that is not necessarily just about WordPress admins, right? Or WordPress sites. You have to think about this if you have a website at all, right? A lot of times with with websites these days, not just WordPress, there are plugins, there's extra functionality, there's extra code that's added. You download something, you add it to your website, whatever, right? And so you have to be aware of what is on your website. You can't just rely on the developers to identify issues or websites to identify issues. You have to be aware of what you have, right? And when hackers start exploiting certain things, you've got to be aware of that. You've got to try to identify that. But that starts with knowing what you have. It's common security, right? Cybersecurity 101. Understand what you have, understand your code base, understand the things that you're bringing into your network or onto your website, and just be aware of that. All right, next article here. Network outages in Birmingham persist as city officials stay tight-lipped. City of Birmingham, Alabama is still experiencing outages limiting government services more than a week after a network disruption forced officials to switch to cash transactions and to take other temporary actions. In a brief update posted to social media on Thursday evening, the city said its offices, and this is a quote, remain open and staff is committed to serving the public despite a network disruption first announced a week ago. So they had a cyber disruption. AL.com reported on Tuesday that the city sent an internal memo to city employees assuring that salaries would be paid this month and denying rumors that data had been stolen. But the memo, written by city spokesman Rick Journey, provided no specifics about whether the city is dealing with a ransomware attack. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when this stuff happens, when these kind of announcements happen, just so you're aware, a lot of times it is a ransomware attack, like a lot of times, almost always, right? And then even if they don't say it, a lot of times after the fact, it's like, okay, yeah, we had a ransomware attack, right? Like that definitely happens. And then you're just like, when a ransomware attack happens, you're just like, no! Right? And then you have all this, bad turnout that happens because you had a ransomware attack, bad after effects, all kinds of things. So, it's a big deal when you have a ransomware attack. As previously stated, essential services, including 911, police, fire, household garbage pickup, and bulk trash and brush pickup have remained operational throughout this period without interruption for the public, the city explained on Thursday. Yeah, when you're a city organization or a city entity, right? So whatever it is, especially things like police, fire, 911, sanitation, right? Like those are major things to go offline in whatever capacity. If those are affected, that's a really serious issue because those are very important things, right? And obviously it differs, how important they are, when they're most important, how often they have to be online, like those kinds of things, right? But like police, fire, those affect lives, so those have to be on. And if you've ever, created software for those kinds of services or dealt with those kinds of services, then you know that those just can't go offline, right? Like it's very essential that those stay online. Now they do say the city's processing all license renewals and accepting tax payments, cash, and check only at this time. Individuals seeking new business licenses may face delays due to limitations to some systems, right? It's just a less critical system. Despite claiming that police operations were not affected, officials told AL.com that the outage has impacted a system officers use to check for outstanding warrants and stolen cars. So that's kind of an issue still, right? All transactions for taxes, permits, and licenses have been affected by the outage. So, when you have systems in your organization, you have to understand the criticality of those systems, right? That is, again, cybersecurity 101, right? You identify the systems you have an inventory of those systems, and you have to keep that up to date. You have to keep that current and understand where your crown jewels are, where your important stuff is, the systems or the processes that impact your business and that have to be maintained, right? That's part of business continuity, disaster recovery, the order at which you restore systems, right? If you have a lot of systems go out, which order do you restore those? So a lot of things go into play in this situation. And just because this is related to a city, that lesson translates to all companies. It's not just cities that are affected in that way. It's all companies, right? That's a common thing that you have to evaluate as far as your risk posture. All right. So next article, Google introduces enhanced real-time URL protection for Chrome users. Google on Thursday announced an enhanced version of safe browsing to provide real-time privacy, preserving URL protection, and safeguard users from visiting potentially malicious sites. So basically, what this article is saying that, and we have it right here, up until now, the Chrome browser used a locally stored list of known unsafe sites that's updated every 30 to 60 minutes, and then leveraging a hash-based approach to compare every site visited against the database. So it used a local database to store that information, and it was updated every so often from a server. So they're actually shifting that from a local database to one that they're going to host. And so most likely that's going to be checked a little bit quicker, right, than 30 to 60 minutes. Ultimately, safe browsing sees the hash prefixes of your URL, but not your IP address. So these are some privacy concerns, right, is when you're dealing with a server instead of a local hosted system or database, what is being exchanged with that database, right? Like that's always a concern, because if your IP address is being sent over, well, in the US, that's not always as much of an issue, but especially if you're in like Europe, where there's some stricter guidelines, some stricter requirements, that does become an issue if you were exchanging that information, especially if it's outside of Europe, right? But, it's all this discussion about privacy. What kind of information is being exchanged? What kind of information is being stored? What can be kind of divulged or figured out from that information, right? So this database that's being stored in Google, if that got hacked, what could an attacker figure out about the different users that are in there? And when we're thinking about local databases versus like server-based databases, if you have a local database, well, then an attacker can attack individuals and compromise their local database, especially if they're going after a specific person. If it's server-based, then, well, you have to really harden that server or that database that's on the server and make sure that people can't get into it. But then it's that one central location instead of, millions of people that have Chrome installed, right? So kind of a difference in how you can process information. There's always a debate versus local processing, server-side processing, right? There's all kinds of issues with both. But it's an interesting kind of shift in Google's thought process here. So we'll keep moving on the other articles too. Also, if you're looking for cybersecurity training or career services, resume reviews, career coaching, things like that, make sure that you check out Cyber Training Pro as well. And you'll see that at the bottom of the screen here that we do have that the content being sponsored by them as well. So that's great. That's where I put all my courses. So that is another initiative that I have as well to make sure that people are trained up on cybersecurity. So it's all kind of part of my mission to make sure that if you're trying to get in this career field, if you're in this career field and trying to advance, any of those kind of scenarios, that you have all the resources that you need. So let's move on to this next article here. McDonald's global outage was caused by configuration change. McDonald's has blamed a third-party service provider's configuration change, not a cyber attack, for the global outage that forced many of its fast food restaurants to close. Many markets are back online, and the rest are in the process of coming back. We're closely working with the markets that are still experiencing issues, Rice said. Notably, this was not directly caused by a cybersecurity incident, right? Keep that in mind. That's some important verbiage that they put, because I think a lot of times, this kind of thing happens. People automatically, especially right now in today's world, right? People think ransomware, right? That tends to be kind of the place where people are jumping first to right now, and not just, some random event. It's a ransomware event right away, right when things go out. But rather, it was caused by a third-party provider during a configuration change. Interesting. Separate message sent to employees through the company's OTP portal. McDonald's said that the issue is being resolved and that all impacted stores and systems are returning online. Spokesperson for McDonald's was not available to clarify what not directly caused by a cybersecurity event means. Again, when we hear that terminology, and you'll see this in different press releases and things like that, that you can read between the lines. And when somebody says, oh, it's a cybersecurity event, it's almost always ransomware, right? Like, it seems like that is, especially like right now, that seems to be a very common scenario or press release statement that is a result of a ransomware event, right? You see a lot of these trends with these common kind of events, and that seems, seems like they're trying to dispel that it's a ransomware event. I guess we'll find out in a couple months if it was a ransomware event. Employees also shared on social media that they could not take orders, open cash registers, or process payments because POS systems, so point of sale systems, were down. So again, this goes back to the article that we were talking about earlier, but what are your critical systems? What are your critical business processes? How does all of that work? And if you were to lose one of those, right, lose a system, lose a business process, how does that impact your overall business? In this case, if you can't process payments, right, or if you're a business that takes payments online, in person, whatever, right, and your point of sale systems go down, do you have a backup strategy or a backup process? I remember when I was working in retail, we had a backup process where we could manually, process these different agreements or different sales. But, with that being said, you have a credit card, right? Like if you've ever seen those old imprint kind of systems for credit card, they're like readers, and they put an imprint on the actual paper. Look them up if you haven't seen them. But they basically swipe back and forth, and they swipe back and forth, and they imprint the credit card number onto the paper. It's really, really old and dated. But I had to actually learn how to process that. It was very not good, right? But something like that, it's like you can't verify or validate the actual funds or that transaction, right? Like, you have to have another process that can validate that information, put an authorization on the card, right? Whatever it is, because otherwise, for example, if you're dealing with a major transaction, right? An expensive transaction, you have an asset that you're renting out or something like that. It's very expensive or not that expensive, right? Whatever. Can you validate that those funds are there, that you have those funds secured so that this person isn't giving you a credit card that's maybe actually canceled, even though the number on it says it's valid, and then running off with your asset, whatever it is, your inventory that you need for your business to operate. Because that's a quick way to go out of business, right? If you're not tracking your inventory, then you're basically going to go out of business pretty quick, right? It's very easy for inventory to just walk out the door, and then all of a sudden you're out, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million in inventory, right? Like these are big issues if you're not careful with that. And that's why anything that has actual inventory, you see these employees having to go through and track that stuff and recount it. And working in retail, I can remember going through and counting every single piece of inventory. And boy, is that a nightmare. Huh. Oh, yes, it is. So, with that, that is the last article for this episode. So, as a reminder, make sure that you check out the description because there is a link to the articles. Again, that's feed.cyberthreatintel.com. If you go to cyberthreatintel.com, you can find the audio version of these shows. If you go to the John Good Cyber YouTube channel, then you can see the video version or the live stream version and join us for that. So that is always a blast. And again, I appreciate everybody that hopped on for this live stream for this episode 1. And we are definitely looking forward to a lot more of these episodes. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. And I want to thank everybody for joining, and I will see you in the next one.
I went